So ladies and gentlemen, today I will show you the exact step-by-step multi-channel approach that we're using at Multiscalex to book countless and countless of meetings every single month for ourselves and our clients, and therefore generating an obnoxious amount of revenue and money for everyone who uses this entire system. Now in this video I will show you the exact outbound specific part of this outbound system. Last video I already showed you the exact inbound engine that we're using for me to book 200 plus calls every single month with qualified inbound prospects that are ready to buy our service. Today we're going to focus on the outbound part of it. Now bear in mind, at the end of this video, and that's also the reason why you should stick to the very end, I will give you this entire template completely for free. I will give you the exact link so you can just copy paste it into your browser and then eventually copy paste this entire campaign into your account so you can use it right away. The only thing that you'll need to do, and I'm getting into that in just a second, is going to be to write the copy. Why am I not giving you winning copies of ours? Because once we give them out, they're not winning anymore because they'll be oversaturated, because so many people will start using those that they're not work anymore, because the recipients of those emails will just be annoyed by them and they'll not respond anymore. For that reason, I encourage you to write your own copy to really understand your ICP enough to be able to write high converting copy yourself for both LinkedIn and cold email outbound. And I know that you can. I've given you all the resources in past videos on how to do that market research and ICP consultation yourself to have that very in-depth knowledge about your target audience. If not, go ahead and watch these other videos to figure out how to get that knowledge and then eventually be able to write good copy around it. But let's get straight into this entire system. Also, we're building those entire systems for our clients at Multiscalex. So if you're a business owner looking to have this entire infrastructure, outbound plus inbound, built for you, then feel free to book an appointment using the link below. But bear in mind, we only work with business owners who, first of all, have a good offer, have a good service, and deliver results. We don't want to push agencies or businesses that have a low quality service that do not deliver results. We're not going to do that because the power of this system is unmatched. Once we implement it and it starts to work, it's going to scale your business to the moon, and we're not willing to do that for businesses who are not worth to scale them to the moon. And then eventually the second thing is that you're a business owner who understands that for a certain expertise to receive from another agency who's been in the game for years now, has generated millions of dollars through their systems, it requires a certain investment. So you have to spend money to make more money. If you're not willing to spend money on that entire infrastructure, this is not for you, and don't even think about booking a call, because you'll either not get accepted or directly finish the call at the very beginning to make sure that my time is not wasted. But if you're ready to invest money to make more money and have this entire infrastructure built out by the absolute experts in the industry, feel free to book the appointment, and I'm happy to dive deeper into the scope of your product. Anyways, let's get straight into it. Now, this flow right here is a demo campaign that I've built for this video, and this is the exact infrastructure that we're also using in every single one of our other campaigns. I'm not showing you any client campaigns due to the data that I do not want to disclose, and I'm also not allowed to disclose. But as I already said, this is the exact infrastructure that we're also using in other campaigns. So you can replicate this entire thing by using the link that I'm going to show you in the end of the video, and then eventually you'll have this entire thing set up for you, done for you within your Lemlist account. Now, first of all, to already get into the context of what capabilities we are, real quick as an explanation of what we can do right here, and also what you'll be able to change within this entire flow if you want to, once you've implemented it yourself, is that we have those automatic steps. So all the basics, such as sending an email, sending a LinkedIn DM, sending in a voice message. This one is basically uploading an MP3 file that is always the same. And then you also have the option to clone your voice with AI and eventually have personalized voice messages. I wouldn't recommend to do that because that did not work too well for our campaigns, but it just depends. With some voice, it actually works quite well, and then it's pretty sick that you can send out personalized ones, but I wouldn't necessarily try it too often. But you can definitely try it out and see if that works for you, and if not, you can just move on with an MP3 one. And then eventually just basic stuff like sending out an invitation, visiting their profile, which we're going to use a lot. And then eventually you'll also have the capabilities of having manual execution, such as creating a task, such a call. For example, the conversion goal is to call those interested leads, meaning if they have your phone number, which is also conditioned that I'll show you in just a second, you'll be able to get a notification that makes sure that you call them as soon as possible once they have replied to the campaign. and then eventually just manual task, for example, adding them to a CRM or API call, add them to the CRM automatically, send to another campaign. We'll need that in the very end of this entire thing to just basically send them to other flows within our account. And then eventually basic AI variables. And then the conditions that we have is, do they have an email address? Yes, no. Do they have a LinkedIn URL? Yes, no. Phone number, and then just basically custom conditions. And then eventually lead actions, like have they opened the email, clicked on the link in email, unsubscribed from email, booked a meeting, accepted invite, open LinkedIn message, and so on, so on. So you can really go very in depth on how to filter those people into certain segments and certain groups, so they all get like different individual messages, so it all makes sense for that certain step they're currently in the funnel. And that's kind of foundation for everything. But let's get straight into it. So the first thing we're starting with right here is if they have an email address or not. And then also not just if they have one, yes or no, but also if it's deliverable. Because we have those 4 different statuses right here. We have deliverable, not verified, risky, and undeliverable. We only want to send out emails to the ones that are deliverable, because everything else might hurt the sender reputation. Sometimes we may be sending out ones to the ones that are risky if we don't have too many leads, but most of the time we're just choosing deliverable, and all the other ones are basically going into the no flow of the single campaign and into the single channel campaign. Now, yes would be the first step into cold email, and then eventually we have a condition that defines if it's going to multi-channel or single channel again, or no. That would be if they don't have an email address or an email address that is deliverable, then they're going in here. Then eventually we're going to have a single channel approach with LinkedIn specifically. And eventually what we're doing right here is that we first of all visit their profile, because as you know, if you visit someone's profile on LinkedIn, or if someone visits your profile on LinkedIn, they'll be receiving a notification that this and this person visited their profile, meaning that's the first touch point on LinkedIn where they already see your name on their screen. We wait for 1 day, visit their profile again, and then immediately send out an invitation, because then the invitation request is not out of the blue, but they see that you've already visited their profile. So their conclusion might be that you've looked at their profile, there's something relevant on there, meaning they're going to you're going to connect with them. And then once they connect within 1 day, we're going to send out the first message. If you have an inbound as well, so if you have a personal brand where you post content, where you get leads, where you have a certain following, then you can definitely go with a voice message, because that's very personal, and at the very beginning that can help a lot. But if not, and you don't have an inbound personal brand, and you're just doing it for the sake of outbound, then do not send out a voice message as the very first message, because if that's not personalized, that might not be perceived too well, and you're not going to have too many responses or interested responses, or in general just conversation with prospects. So in that case, I'd suggest you to send out a text message, because then you can also personalize it with certain variables and also with AI, etc., and share value in the very first one. So there could be something like basically saying that you already reached out to X amount of experts in that entire industry, that they face this and this problem. Is that something that you're also facing? In that case, you're showing them, okay, you've already talked to people, you know a pain point of them, if it's actually their pain point. And that's again where the ICP refinement comes in, and really knowing your stuff to be able to really define, okay, is that a pain point that I should talk to in my messaging? And then eventually seeing if they face that as well, and then basically positioning you as the expert to solve that solution, to solve that problem. And eventually that's already the single channel approach when it comes to not having an email address. When it comes to the yes flow, first of all, starts with the first cold email in the flow. So it's a primary email that we're sending out. We always have 3 different types of emails that we're sending out. First one is conversational. Second one is more strategic and visual appearing type of email copy. And then third one are 1-liners, 2-liners, 3-liners, so very short and punchy ones. Conversational means that it's in terms of the structure, in terms of the formatting of the email, it's very similar to a message that you would send to a colleague, to a friend, or whatever on email. Then the second one, the more strategic and visual appealing one, is with a lot of bullet points. That's where it gets a little bit more obvious that it's a cold email, but it's very straight to the point. In a lot of industries, they really appreciate that, and meaning they're still going to be interested if you show relevancy in the email. And then eventually the third one is 1-liners or very punchy emails, where it's more about getting to the point straight away without any hesitation. And that again works really well in certain industries, and you just have to figure out which one works best for yours. And then eventually you also have the ability to A/B test this specific step. So in that case, you're just going to A/B test, well, which one works best. We sometimes do A/B tests up to 9 different copies that we're testing out, depending on the volume, sometimes also only 3 or 2 copies that we're testing out. And I'll show you in another video how you can do that with Lemlist specifically. And then we go into the next step, which is a condition, if they have a LinkedIn URL or not. If no, then we're going to go into a single channel approach with cold email specifically. This is then basically just the first follow-up for that one. But if they do have a LinkedIn URL, we're going to go into the multi-channel approach, which is by far the most efficient one, because then you'll now have the first touch point on LinkedIn by visiting their profile. And then eventually going to send out an email. That's basically, again, follow-up number 1 to the primary email. And then eventually going to, again, send an invitation. Theoretically, you could also say that you're first of all going to visit their profile again, and now you're going to immediately send that invitation. So we have that step in between again to show the relevancy even more. It's basically the same thing as I already said right here, that visiting their profile for 2 times a lot of times works even better. That's the multi-channel approach. And in the end, we have all these flows to come together right here into that one single condition. And that's what we are, again, making sure that we either have the one that have an email address or not. And then eventually the ones that don't have one, they'll just, again, go into the single channel approach with LinkedIn specifically. That's just follow-up number 1. And then also very important right here is that depending on what type of message you send out first, so if you send out a text message right here, you can then, the first follow-up can then be theoretically a audio. That works really well, or the other way around, just depends on in what order you want to have, or you just send out a second chat message. But it's always about keeping it very personalized and keeping it very personal, so they get to know you and know that you're the right person to talk to about that topic. Now, if that's a yes and they do have an email address that is deliverable, then it's going to go into the next condition, which is has LinkedIn URL, yes, no. No would be, again, single channel approach with cold email. And yes would be that we go into another condition where we make sure that they have accepted the invite within 1 day. If not, then we're not trying to waste any time, and we're straight going into follow-up number 2, which is also that one. And if they have accepted the invite, we're going to go into the yes flow, which first of all starts with another chat message on LinkedIn, where we can, for example, refer back to the email that we sent. That's basically, again, follow-up 1 as the one that we can see right here at a little bit later point in time. And then eventually 1 day after, we'll just send follow-up number 2 again. And then eventually all those flows come together, because now we're having one step that all of those charts go through, which is sending follow-up number 3. And this is also where the single channel approach with cold email ends, because this is the last follow-up. We always send out 3 follow-ups. Some people swear that it's better to send more follow-ups. Some people say it's better to send less with more time in between. We like to send 3 follow-ups in the space of approximately 5 days to just make sure that we do not spam the prospect, but have enough other touch points to make sure that they do not miss your message and therefore not respond. But that's basically the single channel approach with email ends. And that's, again, where all charts flow together. And then eventually this is basically the last step for singular channel outreach with LinkedIn, and also the multi-channel one, which is, again, having the condition of, do they have a LinkedIn URL? Yes or no. If yes, then you're going to, again, visit the profile and have one final follow-up on there. And then the eventual step that you're doing right here is sending them to another campaign. And that is also something that I'm going to touch on in another video, which is setting up a nurture campaign. So something that over a biggest period of time, you're going to frequently send out a couple of messages, a couple of emails, to make sure that maybe some might currently not be available out of office, and then you can reach out to them in the future, again, to eventually have the highest potential of having as many leads as possible on your list that will see your message and eventually respond, and then hopefully convert through it. And that is very important to just make sure that we do not lose any leads. But if they then still not respond after this nurture campaign, we're just going to abandon that lead, because then the likelihood of them just not being active, or us just not being able to reach out to get through to them, or them just not being interested in the service is just very high. and we're not trying to waste our time and our amount of emails that we can send right there. And that's actually the interesting point about this entire thing, is that once they respond to a step, this entire campaign will stop for this specifically. So if they respond to the primary email, it's going to stop here. If they respond to the voice message or text message, then it's going to stop right here. And that is the same case with every single one. Meaning, as you can see, we have so many different touch points on here, which makes it super efficient. And this is also the reason why we have very good reply rates of, with the initial messages of up to 15+%, and then eventually also getting higher with that. Is the reason because we have so many touch points, but there are a lot of leads that will not respond in the first couple of days, meaning they'll either be then triggered through the specific follow-ups, or they're being sent into the nurture campaign to eventually make sure that we might convert them, or we might getting them to respond to our emails in, I don't know, 1 or 2 weeks from now, to not lose that lead. Because if you're now going to this entire flow, that means you had a bunch of different touch points, and eventually you're getting to this very end. It means that we've already sent you a bunch of messages, you just haven't replied, and now you're being sent into that nurture campaign right there. And that's how we secure each and every single lead to have the highest likelihood converted through this entire system, through just a lot of irrelevant touch points with every single lead. Also respecting their time, respecting their space, not spamming them, but really having an approach that across multiple channels approaches these clients in a way that is very respectful and very relevant and very client-centered and not product-focused. And that's how we do it. That's how we generate those incredible results that you can see all across my LinkedIn profile. And again, if you want to have this entire thing set up for you, and if you are a business owner that matches the requirements that I talked about in the beginning of this video, feel free to book an appointment with the link in the description down below. If you don't match the requirements, don't even think about it, because then you just get sorted out. Because if you don't qualify to work with us, we're not going to work with you, obviously, because for this specific system, we're only going to take on 5 clients over the space of the next 1.5 to 2 months to really be able to focus a lot on that entire system. So if you think that's you, then feel free to book an appointment, and I'm happy to dive deeper into the scope of the project that we're going to build for you. But I'm now also giving you this entire link. So here in the video, either here in the video or also in the description down below, you'll have the link that you can then just paste into your browser to eventually have that entire campaign that you can then, as I already said, just copy paste into your own Lemlist account, and then eventually individualize yourself, change a little bit up. If you want to change any flows, make it a little bit different from what I've showed you right here. As I already said, this is a proven infrastructure, but if you want to change it so it fits your style better, that is totally up to you. I'm happy to have any feedback if you're seeing that something works even better. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, or book an appointment with me. And besides that, I hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.